Welcome back to MFO, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in today. And today is a big one. We're going to give you 3 baits or techniques that the pros are using that they're not talking about. These are things that they're trying to keep secret. They're trying to keep it off camera when they're in the lead. And we've been talking. It's time to put it out there. You're going to want to stick around and see these 3 techniques that they're using that they're catching fish, making money on, that you're going to want to put into your arsenal. Stick around, guys. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. We're going to talk about these techniques, but I'm actually also going to show you the known technique and then compare it to what they're doing that makes it a little different. So we're going to start out with forward-facing sonar if you're shaking a minnow. So you've got, what doesn't matter whether it's a jig head minnow, a tush rig, whatever. You've got your minnow. This one happens to be the Crush City Rapala freeloader. Shaking a minnow. Everybody knows, we've seen it works, but when you're throwing at those forward-facing fish, there are times when shaking a minnow just doesn't work as effectively on certain bodies of water than it does on others. And to be honest, there are times when those fish get so accustomed to see those minnows shaking along, those jig head minnows shaking along, that they tend to not bite. Well, here's what guys are doing when that happens. They're switching over and they're throwing a wacky rig, but not just a wacky rig, a weighted wacky rig like this core tackle straight shank weighted wacky shot. This one is the heavier 1/8 ounce size. So if you need it to get down because those fish are deeper, you can use a heavier one, or they have a 1/28 ounce size if either the fish are suspended up higher or you just want it to flutter down normally. But they're using those wacky shots in that forward-facing sonar scenario where they aren't hitting those jig head minnows, but they will hit a wacky rig. And notice, guys, a lot of them are using like either a little 4-inch Cinco or maybe something like a flick shake or something like that that gives a lot of action and movement as it's going down. Something small profile, but getting it in front of those fish. And because it's weighted, you're able to, once it gets down to the depth you need, by lifting your rod tip, you can keep it in the portion of the water column that fish is in to keep that bait in front of the fish's nose and be able to kind of undulate it and work it. That's tip number 1. Use the wacky shot from Core Tackle when you're forward facing. It works. All right, let's move to the next one. A lot of guys know about throwing a Big Easy or a swim bait, and it's weighted. You can use a tush rig in a swim bait. You can use a weighted spring lock hook like these Gamakatsu, and they got the weights on them. That will take your swim bait and put your swim bait down in the water column, and you can swim it along. People know about that. It works. But here's the technique that pros are using that people don't know about. Instead of using a weighted hook or any kind of a jig head, not even using the tush, but just using an unweighted screw lock hook, puts your bait in a position where this bait now will ride on the surface of the water. And that tail, this bait will not sink. You can cast it a mile because it's heavy, but when you get it, you start working that bait, and when you've got this rigged without any weight in it, that tail just kicks and sputters on the surface of the water. In the springtime, this is a phenomenal bait. Work it in water that's 2-3 feet deep. Those fish are there, and it's gurgling across the top, and you will get phenomenal strikes, massive bone-crushing strikes on something. This is the easy swimmer here, but really, and I really like to throw the easy swimmer, but your swim bait, unweighted, using a screw lock in the spring, over the top. And again, this is a bait that you can throw. You don't need clean water. You can throw it over through lily pads, around grass. Just work it any place up shallow. You don't have to worry about whether there's vegetation or not because it's a weedless presentation, but that little tail kicks in the back and it really, really works. So there are times when you want to get rid of the weight and just go weightless on your swim bait. And then finally, guys, again, sticking up shallow when you got that grass that's just coming up, a lot of guys have a tendency of throwing a square bill. Well, this is a bait that's been around for a number of years, but people are not talking about it. And that is the hybrid hunter from Strike King. This bait is amazing when it comes to the hunting action that it has. It does not just come back in a vibration. It scoots and scatters. And when you're talking about, again, working relatively shallow cover, but keeping a bait that will stay above the grass and hunt and move and just skitter all over the place, the hybrid hunter is a bait that pros are not talking about very much at all. They're using it a ton and they're making a ton of money, but they aren't talking about the hybrid hunter. So you've got 3 baits here, guys, or 3 techniques that people aren't talking about very much, but they absolutely make money for those pros. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're giving you tips that help you be better fishermen. We're getting you prepared. If you're up north like me, it's not going to be long before we're out on the water. Springtime is coming. I hope that you're able to use these tips, become a better fisherman. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification button. Share it with your buddies. We appreciate it. And we will see you again tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.